A habit with me. Of course, you don't need anybody's permission to laugh at them, but a growl, on the other hand, there's things to be said about that.
Camus is one of those guys. He has said once, it's hard not to feel nostalgia for the primates. This is part of the story where he was describing a man running an establishment. He would call him an ape because the guy would always grunt. And on rare occasions, he would tell his customers, you can take it or leave it. Take it or leave what? Doubtless his establishment, his food, all things considered. Camus had said, it's hard not to feel nostalgia for the apes because at least the apes didn't have any ulterior motives.
Can you tell me, please, do you know anybody who grunts or growls? Of course, these folk, they do show respect and kindness and modesty. Besides, they're not into spitefulness. They're just not interested in anything that does not concern their business. Albert Camus, by age 23, he had already moved to Paris, kind of settled. He had moved there after his education, a PhD in philosophy from the University of Algiers. He was working in the media industry, doing a bit of playwriting, theater, production, play acting, and some writing. Before he was 40, he'd already published a few bestsellers like The Stranger and The Myth of Sisyphus. I think it was around this time that he must have got the nod from his friend and publisher. Financial freedom at last. Now, Albert, he's a man who knew a thing or two about what it is to have flair, style, and in the social circles, he got on famously. He had this free and easy manner about him, familiar when appropriate, silent when necessary. He presented himself as both a tireless dancer and an unobtrusively learned man. Of course, there were distortions, wrinkles in the fabric of life. His participation in the public arena, social discourse, writing op-eds, which were often challenged. The folks he was sparring with, they were kind of heavyweights. They come from a lineage of intellectuals, have degrees, education from the finest French universities. And now, I ask you, would some of them, due to the helplessness of not being able to overcome an argument, taken to marginalizing the opponent, reducing them to their social roots? Oh, one can only imagine. But for Camus, the party continued until one autumn day, Paris, 1957. It was as if somebody had come in and switched off all the lights, turned off the music. Grandma was back? No. He'd gotten a phone call. He was to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature in Stockholm, Sweden, later that year. People who knew him say he had gone into what they call an existential crisis. Now, of course, this is a personal, individual, abstract, unique experience. It's hard to know what it exactly was. There's numerous analysis to these things as usual from the experts. The one I find fitting, simple. At the height of his career, the man was enjoying himself. He was 44. I guess he was wondering, does the partying have to stop? Do I now have to conform to a life befitting a Nobel Prize winner? Be a role model and such. The question of freedom, I suppose. But he gets over it. He reconciles. The recognition is to hail the artist in him, not the individual. His acceptance speech is a real tell. I can hear the emotional crackle in his voice. This madness of sincerity, gratitude, humility. There is absolutely no doubt that the Nobel Prize helped him enormously at a time when he needed it the most. Assuredly, it gave him the confidence to maintain his assertions, his point of view. And one could say, slowly he had gained the friendship, the respect of his contemporaries. And now, ask me please, I beg you, do I think Camus was a saint? Here's the answer. In the story of the stranger, Mrso, he's vehemently opposed to religion, God. And I take from that Camus was an atheist. So picture this. A large congregation of atheists have gathered together for some event. There's a man standing at the podium, loudspeaker and all, giving this impassioned speech. And at the end of it, he says, "The time has come to pick a new leader among us." And quite appropriately, I ask, who among us has the most failings? I think Camus is that guy. He would look around at the hesitant faces and then lift up his hand, half joking. The man from the podium, "Okay, Nariel Kundasru will do." Huh? What?
Wait, no,